Hey everybody, welcome back. And this is the fourth Sunday of Lent. It's the second of the scrutinies that I talked about last week. And the gospel this week is from the Gospel of John. As Jesus passed by, he saw a man blind from birth. He spat on the ground and made clay with the saliva, smeared the clay in his eyes, and said to him, "Go wash in the pool of Siloam," which means sent. So he went and washed and came back able to see. His neighbors and those who had seen him earlier as a beggar said, "Isn't this the one who used to sit and beg?" Some said, "It is." But others said, "No, he just looks like him." He said, "I am." They brought the one who was once blind to the Pharisees. Now Jesus had made clay and opened his eyes on a Sabbath. So then the Pharisees also asked him how he was able to see. He said to them, "He put clay on my eyes, and I washed, and now I can see." So some of the Pharisees said, "This man is not from God because he does not keep the Sabbath." But others said, "How can a sinful man do such signs?" And there was a division among them. So they said to the blind man again, "What do you have to say about him, since he opened your eyes?" He said, "He is a prophet." They answered and said to him, "You were born totally in sin, and you are trying to teach us?" Then they threw him out. When Jesus heard that they had thrown him out, he found him and said, "Do you believe in the Son of Man?" He answered and said, "Who is he, sir, that I may believe in him?" Jesus said to him, "You have seen him, and the one speaking with you is he." He said, "I do believe, Lord," and he worshiped him. Man, sometimes you read the Bible and there's just like a lot of stuff going on, multiple layers of meaning, and there's a lot of history and culture and geography and context that goes into reading the scriptures. Now, here's the thing. The great thing about the Bible is you can just read it, and just for face value, it's going to say something to you. But sometimes understanding some of the deeper meaning and context can really open up the scriptures for us. And the thing about the time of Jesus, ultimately, is that the law had progressed to a point that there were laws for every bone in your body, every day of the week, every thought you might have. The system of law was extremely complex because I think it comes from a good place of wanting to live our lives, every facet of our being, devoted to God. But at the time of Jesus, as evidenced by the fact that Jesus himself is speaking about these things, sometimes we get so fixed on the letter of the law that we really don't read into the spirit of the law. And here we have a man who is basically born blind, and his illness, or his the way in which he was marginalized from society, had basically become his identity. It was the way that he was identified as a person. So if you notice in the reading, they're like, "Isn't that the guy who's been blind since birth?" Meaning the thing that other people identified him for was his disability, was the thing that in some ways it kept him marginalized from the rest of society. Basically, it prevented him from participating in society as a normal person. And so a big thing in the time of Jesus, when Jesus would heal people, he would say, "What is it that you want?" He's sort of giving them the option of saying, "I don't want to be identified by this anymore," because there's ramifications in your life for when God changes you. Now, there's some things that even I wish. I was born with a clotting disorder. Man, would I love it if Jesus would have came to me when I was a kid and said, "What do you want?" And I was like, "I want to be healed from hemophilia." Sure. But the thing that I've come to understand is that the love of Christ and the way that God sees me, he sees those aspects of me, but my identity is not limited to those things. So there's some aspects of who we are as people that, and sometimes it's stuff that we're born with, sometimes it's stuff that's circumstantial, things that happen to us. And the great thing about the good news of how God sees us is that our identity is not just limited to that thing. And sometimes there's a moment in life where you do something and you feel like, oh no, I've been marked by this forever, and this is the only way that people are going to see me now. But the good news is that Jesus sees us made in his image and likeness. And that's what he sees when he looks at each and every one of us. And so Jesus looking at this man and healing this man born blind, who then comes to believe that he's the Son of God. All along, Jesus saw more than just this man's blindness. And the great problem with the Pharisees at the time was they could only sometimes see things at face value. Likewise, the fact that Jesus is healing a man on a Sabbath, they're so fixated on making sure that the Sabbath is a day of rest that their eyes are blind to the reality of God himself doing a miracle on the day that he instituted as a day of rest. Which, if God wants to heal someone on a day of rest, it's his day of rest. It's not our day of rest. The Sabbath was made by God for us. It wasn't made by us for God. And so on the day of rest, in some ways, what we're invited to, particularly people in ministry, is we are called to rest not on the merit of our work, but on the merit of his work, and also bear witness to ways in which he's trying to open our eyes to see people not by one aspect of maybe something they've done or maybe some aspect of who they are, but to see them with the potential that being a child of God can have.